Well, welcome to the increasingly inaccurately named monthly update. I think it's just coming up to 3 months since the last one, but that's all Liv's fault because she's been out and about, but we'll hear about that later. Further to that, another apology is we've been hijacked by the fundraisers who want us to talk about Shine for ShelterBox, which is our annual winter campaign, which is running from November the 15th to February the 16th. So that is now. They're asking families, friends, communities to get together to bring hope and light to families in need after a disaster and help raise funds by holding their own candlelit supper, singing event, or attending one of our partner events. And we're asking the volunteers, that's you, to share social media updates or give out leaflets, host your own candlelit supper event, encourage local businesses and groups to host an event or help promote. Your candlelit supper kit includes invitations, collection box, table confetti, place cards, a poster, and a paying in form. And the singing kit includes stickers and luminades, which were donated specially for this campaign, and a collection box. So you'll actually get some luminades, which I think they cost about £15 to the real world, but they've been donated for free by the lovely people at Luminade. And that is for the Shine for ShelterBox. So please get in touch with the fundraisers about how you can take part in that. Now, that was a word from our sponsor, quite literally, and we'll get into the thick of it. Right. What have we been doing in the time that we've not been speaking to you? Well, looking at that map, it shrunk a little bit. There's nothing going on in the Western Hemisphere, although the reports are with the El Nino phenomenon. It's going to be the hottest year on record, and that is going to cause some severe effects in South America. So we're poised for that. We've moved around some kit to South America in anticipation of that. Syria is ongoing. Iraq is ongoing because that's part of the displacements within Iraq and the Syria stuff. And Africa, there's lots of displacement in and around Nigeria and further south from that. And we've, of course, got the DPRK, or North Korea to those people know it from that name, that had flooding a couple of months ago, and it is ongoing as we've got aid on the sea. It's arriving any day now, and a second shipment in, but we'll talk about that later. Nepal. We've just had a monitoring team come back from Nepal to see how the distributions are going. We've got 3 parts. Tarpaulin distribution that's been ongoing. We've got 14,500 tarps that are going out, still going out. And we'll come to the reasons why it's been delayed later. Lightning projects, as we call them, which is working with ACTED for just under 1,800 shelter kits, and they're going out. And additional projects we're looking at of how we can support that further sort of recovery. The reason that this is ironically been called the Lightning Project and it's slowed right down is because the Nepalese government and the Indian government are getting into a bit of a tiff about import and export, and there's been a big fuel shortage which has pretty much ground the whole country to a halt. So we've just had the team out there and things are happening, starting to ease up a bit, but things have been delayed because of that fuel shortage. Iraq, well, I'm a little bit hesitant to speak here because I've got an expert. Liv, the one who does not speak, does have a speaking part this time because she's just come back from Iraq. We put in a team to assess the situation and compare and contrast, because we've got 2 different types of ShelterBox tents. We've got the UN tents and we've got some ShelterBox dome tents out there to see, in fact we've got both in that picture. You can just see the ShelterBox tent at the right and left hand side of the picture and then UN tents behind, so you can actually see the difference in one picture there. And they'll be meeting partners to figure out how we've done, how we are doing, and what we can do in the future with the situation in Syria and Iraq changes. So Liv, over to you. What did you see?
Well, it was the first time I'd ever been to a refugee camp, and as I'd been sort of told prior to departing the UK, every woman I'd meet would be exceptionally nice, and they were. I was very pleasantly surprised that people seemed quite settled, obviously unsettled emotionally, and the fact that what they'd left behind was probably a war-torn country. Or part of the country, but they seemed quite settled in their current sort of shelter situation, so that was nice, and it was really, really great to get the opportunity to go out there and talk to some people face to face, and see how see how these things are dealt with, which was a new experience for me. So yeah, very interesting.
Any new media bits you're going to put out for people to look at?
Of course. Of course there are. Yes. So I've got a few films that are coming out from that deployment, but as you can imagine, there's quite a lot to translate or to ask to be translated from our charity translation services. So that takes a little while. So hang fire on emailing me and asking me when those are going to be coming out, because they will be out as soon as I can get them to you. But yes, they should be a really interesting watch, hopefully.
Right. Well, moving on to Malawi. We had quite a large deployment earlier on in the year, and we've sent a team to go back to discover, has our solution worked into other solutions? Because the ideal is not just to give them, a tent or a box or a shelter kit, but it's supposed to be part of a process to get them back into as close as we can possibly can to what they had before. That's the reason you're giving your money and supporting us is to be part of a process, not just a product. Malawi, very, very challenging. There's food insecurity, really, hard-hitting poverty, very, strong seasonal changes with the rainy season that comes. And we want to know, did our solution marry in with what went on and what we can do differently in the future to make it more effective. One of the things that's a theme that's developing now is that our deployments are going to have to go on a bit longer past that actual distribution phase to see what problems arise after we've left, and to consider adding different locally purchased items to help people move on to that next solution, because it's a waste of money if we just give something that's just going to put them back homeless when that tent does eventually fall apart, and they do. They are not a permanent item. They're not a house, and that's the reason we're there, is to get them back into a solution. It's pointless just turning up and delaying the problem. We want to be some part of the solution. So yet again, we have another speaking part, because Liv was part of the team in Malawi to bring back footage as what we've done and what we hope to do in the future and how it's going to change the way we do things. So, Malawi, what are your thoughts?
First time in Africa, so it was a great location to go and have my first sort of Africa experience with a great team as well. Lots of, my primary focus was trying to identify what kind of footage we might be able to bring back to make a story or stories to share with you all, and also identify the things like Alf has just said, what works really well, what can we do better next time, and that's what we're trying to do all the time, is just keep on top of how we can improve and make improvements where we can. So that was a really fantastic deployment as well.
The interesting thing, we have volunteers who normally just go out on the deployments of deploying kit went on that evaluation and monitoring mission as well, and all of them have come back and said that they view what we do very differently, having seen the after effects or how our solution has bedded in afterwards, and would do things differently if they were to do things again on other deployments in the future, expanding that viewpoint of what we do. Which is superb news, which is why we wanted to go back. It is an expense. We believe it's a worthy expense, because it will allow us to do a better thing in the future that will actually help our beneficiaries, which is what we're all focused about. So, coming to a part of the world that Liv hasn't been to in the past 3 months, we've come to Greece, and I have researched the pronunciation of this, and the island we've been to is Lesbos. And what we are getting into here is a very complicated situation. We have a lot of things swirling around the Greece situation. It's all out of Syria, so when people say, why aren't you getting more involved in the Greek crisis, well, we are. We have put millions of pounds worth of donors' money into Syria, which is where the aid comes from. The points to note is that Greece is just the tip of the iceberg. It's only the people who are active and able to, money-wise, to actually get to Greece. The more vulnerable people still remain in Syria, who we are, putting our main efforts into that. Greece should be protected by the UN treaty, and people should be registering as refugees as they come into Europe. But we all know, having watched the telly, that isn't quite working out. So we have got involved to try and make sure that the registration process to discover who is really a refugee and those people who are not and what should be done with them, it's backing up. The people who arrive in their thousands and it backs up. So we've been trying to get involved to make sure that those conditions for people who are waiting to be processed are humane and they're treated with the basic human rights of shelter and dignity. It's not our standard model. We've just sent a team back and we've got 100 tents out there. Now, we've been asked to go back again and to see if there's any more need on the other islands, and we're going to send a team in the near future to do that. And we're also going to be scoping out, normally when there is a disaster of this, there is a shelter cluster that comes in, and that's usually run by one agency or another. But because it's Europe, because the UN are involved, there are a lot of red tape issues around that. Now, being ShelterBox the way we are, we might be able to cut through some of that red tape and offer that service ourselves. We have the expertise. We've had a couple of people who've done the course. We've had one of our people who've actually done that in Malawi, and we might be able to be some sort of cluster, some focal point to coordinate the shelter efforts, which isn't happening at the moment. So we want to know why that's not happening, who should be doing it, and why can't they? And if it's a good idea and that people can't, we will try and see if we can do that. It will make more use of our aid, and it will bring some of our expertise to that should it's needed. So that's something that we're going to do slightly on the outside of what we normally do. But that's the thing that ShelterBox brings to these situations, is we're not bound by red tape as much as the other agencies. So we can adapt our approach to do what's best for the beneficiary within our bounds. Tanzania, moving on to there, Burundi has got lots of violence happening in it, and there is lots of Boko Haram type violence and election violence in that part of the area. So we've had 298 tents have already been pitched, and there is another 700 that are in the process of being pitched, and we've just had a team there. It's not our ideal situation. We're working in partnership with the UN and the IOM there, and we'd much rather be taking charge of it ourselves, but because it's a larger effort, you have to play ball to be in the game at all. So we've just sent a team, everything's going fine, and we're talking about sending a team back in there to make sure it's all gone out in coordination with everyone else. There's 14,000 people on the Burundi border that may or may not cross over due to visa issues and a sort of I'm trying to use the word import, but that's not quite the right word. People coming across the border, whether they can or can't. If that comes over, they're going to have another crisis again. So we're poised to act more in this area, and we'll have a team to see how the distributions are going in that one. Syria, we've spoke about. We have been trying to get pipelines going for years. I can just give you a quick summary. You won't be seeing this slide for reasons that will become obvious. One of our partners who does not wish to be mentioned by name because the very nature of what they're up to, they would prefer to remain nameless. We have 600 tents that have just been released from customs with them, and we've had some logistical issues with them because the Turkish government have changed their rules and regulations with the fluid conflict there. So we've got 600 tents that will be distributed in Syria. I've said it before, but I'll re-emphasise it. The reason we're acting with so many partners is that it is not safe for us as an organisation to put our people into Syria. Other people have made a different decision about that, and the consequences have been quite severe. So we made the decision quite early on that we would use partners who use locals who can move a lot more freely. Their local knowledge, their contacts make it a lot safer for them to do so. We're not saying it's too dangerous for us, but we don't mind other people getting killed. That's not what it's about. It's their ability to act safely is much more enhanced by who they are and who they know and what they do. We've got hand in hand for Syria, our original partners in this enterprise. We have 535 tents in distribution, and we are waiting for permissions for another 465 tents. We've just been sent some footage of schoolbox distributions that will melt your heart, which Liv is working on to get some translations of the signs that are being held up and some of the commentary on that. So hopefully we'll have that for you in the near future. And we've got IOM. We have 500 tents that have been cleared customs, and they're being distributed. 500 UN tents awaiting confirmation from the Turkish Red Crescent permissions because we're working with them. And we've got 1,200 tents that are pretty much just about ready to be sent. We have another agency who also wishes to remain nameless, and there are 500 tents, UN tents in northern Iraq that are being used as ongoing for people coming across the Iraqi border and people displaced within Iraq itself. We're also in the final stages of talks with Relief Aid to send a shipment to them, and we've got another agency as well. So, coming to the latter parts, the Niger crisis, well, I think that's been an ever constant companion of these briefs. We've just put a team through Niger, and we have almost finished the 2,000 shelter boxes of the distributions, both for the flooding earlier on and now bottom right hand corner, for the Boko Haram violence, which is increasing in intensity. And we will be sending more in the near future when those 2,000 have gone, and we're also in talks about sending school boxes as well to free up schools which are being used at the moment as shelters. And Cameroon, pretty much part of the same crisis of Boko Haram. They got violence in the northern region of Cameroon, suicide bombings and all kinds of hideousness happening there. 224 shelter boxes, an additional 1,000 tents, 2,000 solar lights. And the team have been there to actually see the real difference that your money and your efforts are making. It's reduced the number of cholera cases. The filters are being used to clean the water. Families are now able to live together in one space. There's visible psychological and physical recovery going on because those boxes were sent, and we're in talks to do some more. Because our view of AIDA is only going up, and unfortunately the situation is only getting worse in the north of Cameroon. Remote distributions, we have aid going to North Korea, as you should know about if you've been listening to these briefs. And Afghanistan, we were in talks about disaster preparedness, and an earthquake has happened, and we are trying to get through some logistical challenges about getting into Afghanistan with aid through ACTED. Hopefully we'll get our way past that and we can get some aid to some people who need it. Hopefully I'll update you in the next, hopefully we'll be in a month, but it all depends on Liv's travel plans.
I'm not planning anywhere.
Well, we might actually get an update out in another month, which is what you want. So there you are, your favourite slide, the last one. I hope it's been of some use. Keep your emails, I say keep your emails coming, start emailing in. No, I had some back the other month and we answered those questions, but please do, if you want any special things or individual items of interest you want putting in this brief, please let me know. And that's us. I'll speak to you in a month, hopefully. Goodbye.